How are you? So you're probably like me and you like the short version. What we're looking at today is I've got an HP Pavilion DV6000 torn down to the motherboard, and there were a lot of these laptops that were recalled because the NVIDIA GPU has an overheating problem, which causes these problems to run real hot, these laptops, and there was actually, to my understanding, a settlement from NVIDIA, something to the tune of $4 million. If your warranty expired on your laptop, you could get a hold of your laptop manufacturer, and like in the case of Dell, they extended the warranty for the GPU problem 1 year past what your original warranty would expire for. So I'll just give you a quick look right here as to what I'm seeing. I tore down this laptop right here. This is all the parts. This is the that's the base, palm rest here, loose screw. But as we look at the motherboard, and we can see the motherboard right over here. Sorry about the shoddy camera work. Right here is the NVIDIA GPU. This thing, I'm not sure what caused it to run so hot, but when it does, there's thermal paste, and that thermal paste has very little moisture. It's non-conductive. It overheats, and then it kind of separates, and so then you've got these little tiny splotches all around this little chip of thermal paste, and it doesn't cool it correctly. It runs too hot, and then your machine either locks up, shuts down, or the video starts to corrupt. So what we can do to fix this, or to remedy this, and I'll also show you the heat block. This is the cooling block right here. This is the underside of it, if you can see that. This is for the CPU area right here. This is where the GPU goes, and I can actually see the imprint of NVIDIA on this GPU. Cooling space. That's not good. Let me get my cooling paste here, and then you can see how we can remedy this. And I'll try and get that down on the motherboard. People that work on computers is either Fry's or Micro Center. This one here was 45 bucks. This is so I can do a lot of computers. Typically do a lot of teardowns on laptops, HP, Dell. Those two name brands are the most that I tear down. And then you just take the thermal paste, and I'll show you how I apply it. You want to do it very sparingly, so hopefully you can see this. And whoops, a little bit of ooze there. It's not going to be too bad. I'm going to clean that up though. Basically, you do not want to get moisture on the motherboard. You know, if you ever drop your iPhone or Android into the toilet, it's pretty much game over after that. Oops, let's see if we can. So we'll just get a very little bit on there. Now all we want to do is get a bit, enough to make a gap between the GPU and the cooling block. So that's probably a little bit too much, but as you can see, I'm just dabbling it on here. Let's see, where's that? Alright. And this is my second time doing this, just so you can see how it's done. So all we want is a very thin coat on here. We don't want to put too much. If you put too much, it'll pour on to everything else. If you can see that, we've just basically got enough paste here to cover the area of the silicone wafer itself, and also on the GPU here, you'll see these tiny little resistors around the side. We want to try and stay away from those. And we'll see if this laptop boots up after we're done putting it back together. So right now I'm going to demonstrate how to put this heat block back onto the motherboard. Every computer is different. Computer manufacturers make their parts proprietary, but basically, if I can show this to the camera, okay, we've got 4 screws here that hold this part of the heat block down to the motherboard, and then this part over here is for the GPU, graphics processing unit. We have 1, 2, 3 screws, and they're usually numbered, so you just tighten them down in the order once you have them lined up. One other thing that I'll show you here is that we've got these copper tubes, and what these copper tubes are, they kind of work like the hoses on your radiator in your car. But in here there's glycol, and as it heats up, it evaporates through this core over here to this little radiator unit, and as the fan, you can see the fan underneath here, as it turns, it pulls the heat out of this copper right here and dissipates the heat into the air. Same thing with the video GPU. We've got another glycol tube over here. It's a sealed tube, and so once the heat is pulled off, it cools off back to liquid. It kind of flows along the bottom, it evaporates again, comes back, and so it's kind of a enclosed circulatory system. Anyways, we also have a little power plug here for the fan. If your fan is not working, that's going to cause you major overheating issues on your laptop. You always want to make sure to have a working fan. Sometimes you can get a new one for as cheap as $15. Just make sure you get the one that's specified for your laptop. Trying to see what I have in the camera here, and it's got a straightforward LCD. I can't see it from an angle. It looks like a picture negative. Anyway, so this is the cooling block with the fan, and I'm going to line up these holes. You want to have a very gingerly touch. Make sure that you get the holes lined up, and it will almost feel like it's falling into place if you get it lined up correctly. So, and this is a small jeweler's tip Phillips screwdriver. Let's see. There we go. There's the tip right there. We have this lined up. Let's see, we're a little off maybe. Okay, now you should be able to see it. So, and I'm just going to take my fingers and lightly hold this down. This is not even a single pound of pressure, and I'm just lining up the screws and tightening down in the order. Number 2 is across from number 1. Number 3. Now some people just say that you should tighten these down like you would the pan bolts on your training oil pan, or the lug nuts on your tire. That may help. If anything, go back in. You don't tighten these down too tight, just enough to make sure they're snug and won't come loose. But you do want to follow the order specified. And then we want to come over here and do our GPU. Screw number 1 first. Screw number 2. Screw number 3. One of the things that I dislike most about tearing apart laptops is the fact that these little wires here that come from the manufacturer, these things will tear as easy as paper. Seriously. So what I usually do, because these little connectors, they if you try and peel them out with your fingernails, you either don't have steady hands or it's just too tiny to get your fingers in there. You can usually take a screwdriver, and I like to use just kind of a prying principle, but very gently, ever so gently. Let's see, can you, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of the range of the camera. But I just use my finger as a fulcrum point, and I just go on either side and gently. If the plastic starts to tear, I move to a different spot a little bit to pry. But as you can see here, we've got our block back on our motherboard, and if we were to lift up on it, you can see that the motherboard is pretty attached to it pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the fan, and I'll be back. You want to be ever so gentle with these again. I can't stress enough. Gingerly touch is probably the first useful tool you can have for tearing apart a laptop. Some people say a static, anti-static strap for ESD, electrical statical discharge. Um, I'm not walking around on a rug building up a charge in my body. Sure, there's the risk, but I've done a lot of laptops, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get this one going again. So we'll see you when we come back. Hello and welcome back. We're in the finishing stages of putting this laptop back together. I left a couple parts out just so you can make sure that I'm not being a buffoon here. Hopefully it will turn on. I don't have any zoom on this camera. It's a little El Cheapo, but we'll try and fix it here to the laptop. I have yet to put the memory and the hard drive back in, so hopefully you'll be able to see that little DDR2 memory sticks. And when I put these in, again, we want to have a gingerly touch. Once you line up the memory, I usually rock it back and forth. That kind of wedges it down into the memory bank there. Pop it in. You'll hear it snap. You know it's in there well. And we'll put in the other 1 gig stick. We've got a total of 2 gigs here. I've already got the wires hooked up for the wireless card inside this laptop. Sometimes those can be tricky. We've got our hard drive here. This is a SATA form factor, but it's also a proprietary connector behind the SATA connector, or in front of the SATA connector. And we can put this in here, and then just press it down lightly. Go ahead and put on our cover. 2 screws holding it to the bottom. So hopefully you can see this. We got one more cover to put on. This laptop is a bit of a challenge to get apart. There are a couple of wires in it, unfortunately, that are just a real challenge to pull off and put back on. And so finally our last step is our battery here. I'll move this over here so that way you can see better. I'll go ahead and put in the battery. And as you can see, without memory there's no way this thing would turn on, but no editing. If it's a failure, you'll see it as well as me. Hopefully. We need to see something on the screen here. I see a fan, that's good. I see lights on there we go. So that, my friends, is kind of what you're looking at if you have a laptop, and the GPU is from NVIDIA, and it was the particular GPU that had the issue of overheating. Comments in this video are strictly my opinion. I do work on computers. I'm not an A+ certified tech. Don't need to be. Again, here's the Arctic Silver cooling that we used for putting on the GPU and the CPU. I recommend not taking apart your laptop unless you no longer have a warranty. I already have Windows loaded on this laptop, Windows Vista. That's what came with it. I got this computer used, so I reloaded it. And, well, unfortunately, one of the other reasons I took it apart is because I thought the wireless wasn't working, and my suspicions are confirmed.